Q&A podcast. We asked on Instagram story if anybody had any questions for Pete and I, and we got a few. We got a few good ones. Yeah, we got 6 that we have here that we're going to answer now. All right?
6 good questions. Nothing like good questions.
Yeah. All right.
So you don't get stupid-ass answers. All right, here we go.
All right, first question we got is how to battle softness, and this is from my personal friends, Brett. Hitman, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the Hitman Hard guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, you gotta, one, are you asking about yourself?
Yes, he is, because he's soft. We make the joke. He's the softest coach in the industry.
Yes. So, one.
You really
don't take pride in that.
It's a joke. He's actually not.
But
soft.
Still, even a joke.
No,
it's like, okay, I joke about it. Cool. But then, what's the counter to the joke, right? So, battle softness. Let's say if you really are, if you're being honest about yourself, and oh man, I'm just soft or just whatever. I always think of this like, and I probably learned this more when my dad was on his way out. All of the things he couldn't do, and I had to help him, get on and off the toilet and whatever else. And I always think of, at the end of the day, dying day, do you want to be a liability or an asset? Do you want to have people have to wait on you or not? And that's when I sorted myself. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing every single day. So you always got to think of the alternative. Also, it's like, dude, we get to do this shit. No one's putting a gun to our head to come to the gym every day.
Right.
It's a fucking blessing. It's a gift.
And we can move. There's people that probably wish they could move like how
exactly. Like, so I look like when I was a real heavy powerlifter guy, and to what I can do now. It's amazing the stuff I can do now, and that was nearly. Oh my God, what am I? Shit. When I started, I was 22.
So about my age.
22 years ago.
A little older.
And I looked at how gradually, when I gained weight and everything, it got stronger. Yeah, it was great, but I couldn't do shit. Now I can, tumble around, do stuff. My conditioning is so much better, and I'm like, damn, I missed out. That's truly a gift. But anyways, think of all the people who can't do that. All the people who maybe can't walk or don't have any arms, don't have any legs, or there's kids who just don't have the mental capacities to do this sort of stuff. For people that just don't have the mental capacities to do this stuff, and they physically, are just unable. I always think of that as like, damn. Or anybody who's passed away and would love to be here and still doing that stuff. So I know that sounds cheesy, but that's where I always go if I feel like shit. It's like, okay, boom, and then I get that out of my head, and exactly that. Get out of your fucking head.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely think that
technique over pain, right?
Yeah.
Just get the job done. If you're on I think Hitman Hart's on programs and shit. Just follow the program.
Yeah, he's a good guy. We just mess with him, but anyway, overall, like for anybody that is actually having like mental difficulties with like being soft or whatever, I think you can't be comfortable wherever you're at. You have to be uncomfortable with the comfortable, or comfortable
with being uncomfortable.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how you get better.
I don't even use the word comfortable and uncomfortable. Just literally like
go to work, whatever you want to do. Work your hardest, like do the best thing what you got to do.
And that's one thing you can resonate to people too, or just, if they're saying they're being soft or whatever. And you'll see the defense mechanisms too. It'll be like, they'll start laughing, they'll start giggling, or ha ha ha, they'll whatever, they'll make a joke of it, right? So it's like, well, why are you guys here? To joke around? And you have a good time, but the thing is, you got to earn your good time.
Yeah, the difference is all these people making excuses. It's like, just get to work. I can make a million excuses, so many excuses, like for everything and anything. But just go to work, do what you have to do. Yeah. And yeah, everyone has bad days and whatever. But the difference between the people that are successful or not is if they get up and do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just consistency, guys.
Yeah, consistency.
And that goes with anything in life.
Discipline, consistency.
Not every workout's going to be an epic birthday party.
Right.
More times than not, you're going to punch the clock. Well, today was kind of a test, a little bit of a fortitude type deal. But, were there some qualities we drove? Probably. But it was more of like that mental thing of like, oh, shit, like this stuff is actually hard. Yeah. And hang in there. And I know when you were, hey, you chose the way, you did it. It's like, oh, now I got to lower the cool. So, it was kind of a give and take. You can use these things as a coach to kind of get under the skin of your athlete, but in a good way, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you told me you can do this. What's going on? Are you showing up today? I don't know. That's how I am with people anyway.
All right.
Sometimes they don't show up. It's like, oh, bye.
Bye. All right.
All right,
Anyway.
next question.
All right. So this one's from my friend Meg. She said, "Why do I feel what does it say? A shock in my quad during rear foot elevated split squats?" This was funny.
So yeah, we discussed this off of camera here, but I don't quite know what you mean by shock, but I'll just take from what Evie's description of it was. I don't know enough about that in general because I haven't seen you, been around you, see how you move, or know your injury history, anything like that. So it's very tough for me to make a comment, but this is kind of like what I'm thinking. It sounds like maybe possibly some sort of neurological, I don't want to say an issue, but some sort of disruption. It could be something from the actual structure. So if you look at the rear foot elevated split squat, right? Kind of like the posture that you're going through. So the one hip is coming here, the other's coming here, and also got some rotation. So if the front leg is kind of forward a little, the back leg's back, that might alter the position that's where you get the circulation, the blood vessels, the nervous, the nerves, right? That might alter the position of them. So that might be an issue. It might be a slight little micro things of how you're built, but can we go in there and see it? Not really. Which kind of brings me on to, I guess, a little bit of a rant. And this is for that, the split squat crowd who, the split squat is
the only way, the one way
is a panacea, and then any type of bilateral squat is a pariah. And it's like, well, now what do you do? What if the split squat's compromised for somebody? Which sometimes it could be. You'll get that. You might have pelvis issues there, especially at the pubic symphysis area. Sometimes that might be. So what do you do now? Split squat isn't
can't
so
bilateral squat. No way.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, why not get good at both?
Right.
Or instead of like rear foot elevated split squat, try some sort of other single leg drill, which might be a step up. It might be
or just a split squat on the ground. You could do that.
Yeah, split squat on the ground, reverse lunge. Maybe don't elevate the back leg as much.
Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna try that today because I have it today.
Yeah, maybe that might not be the leg that does the issue, but you don't know if that rear foot. Here's the thing: that rear foot is elevated, and you hook it over the bench, and that bench is too high, and it's torquing that pelvis this way. I mean, I'd venture to guess that most people probably might have something going, in their hip. If you can't keep that pelvis underneath you, essentially in a neutral position, with that back leg elevated, you got to lower that elevation or just get rid of it altogether, right? So again, the split squat's not much of a panacea as everybody makes it out to be. Is one leg strength cool? Absolutely. You might even do a pistol squat. Who knows? Test all those other things out and see if you can eliminate it. And if it's still a problem, then definitely go see a doctor. Go see an orthopedist, something like that, so they can at least maybe say like, hey, took some pictures here and you got something going on with this.
Right.
Or, because everybody's built different. Well, it's kind of true. The anthropometry and the shapes of your bones, which are formed at birth, and then, later on they mature. Everybody's grows a little bit differently, and there's variations. You can look at all the perfect drawings of anatomic position you can, but there's all different types of hip types too, and that's a whole other thing people have gotten into, like where you're from in the world. Something called like Gaelic hips, and they don't quite have something about like their hips are the most replaced.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Something like that. They have the most hip replacements. Something like that per capita. Yeah. Out in I think it's Scotland or something like that. But anyways.
All right. Cool.
It's kind of a.
No, that's decent. I'm gonna go look today.
Yeah,
we're doing
so
that.
change the exercise, coach.
I'm gonna change. Yeah. I was, but she was on her last set when she told me, so I was like, okay.
Well, you're a dumbass for telling her on the last set. Tell her from the first set.
I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Well,
all right.
She'll see it on
she'll see it. All right. Best way to develop explosive springs by Run It 25, and I'm guessing just me being stringy, bouncy. This is something we're trying to do. For me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean.
Explosive springs.
Yeah,
so how to get that bounciness, I think that's what.
Springiness, athleticism. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, said principle, right?
Yeah.
Do stuff that's like that.
Said principle.
A lot of short coupling jumping. You could even do in the extensive.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Short coupling jumping.
Short coupling, long coupling. Yeah, essentially, it's just. I want to put it in reference of like ground contact time and then range of motion. So the short coupling would be, let's say, an ankle pop or ankle hop.
Gotcha.
Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. Whereas a longer coupling may be like a squat jump, where you're going to take a little bit more time to load, push off,
Gotcha.
and go. Whereas the other ones, you're trying to stay stiff and spring. So, and you can do that with any exercise, right? So it's essentially shorten the joint range and then spring off the floor. Trampoline might help, just to drive that home with kind of overspeeding the way up. We're kind of finding, I think, oscillatory reps.
Oh, definitely.
Are helping,
yeah.
right? That to change the direction, because you're looking at that local muscular coordination about each joint. So in the case of, like, let's just say it's lower, this is probably you're referencing some sort of lower body.
100%. Yeah.
So you're looking at the tissues around the knee, ankle, and hip, right? How they're coordinated.
Yeah.
In terms of agonist and antagonist, in that case, it's a contract relax type thing. But also just do springier shit.
Sprint. I think sprint. 100% sprint.
Sprinting, obviously.
Sprinting.
That's the most plyometric exercise.
Most plyometric exercise ever. Yeah, sprint often but fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Sprint often but fresh.
Don't do that shit tired.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we did sprints this at 6 a.m. today.
Did you?
We had to, just because of a schedule. Like, we don't usually do that.
It's a great way to wake up.
I know. I was a little like, but anyway.
You were, but the rest of them were probably fine. Well, they're not doing this system, so.
No, yeah.
You're on a toleration cycle.
But yeah, for me personally, I guess to answer, like, put a little input on this is, I'm not an explosive person genetically at all. And the thing that has helped me is, like you said principle, doing these short, quick contacts constantly, whether it's like small dosing into the warm up at first, and eventually getting more intense, so being more extensive at first, and then getting intense and doing that all the time. Like, I like something that Tony Haller says is making that nervous system excited daily. Like, what does he call it? Daily performers. That's what he said before. It's like he likes daily performers. So that's why he has his X Factor workouts. Yeah. So, and I just think doing that, it doesn't have to be crazy volume. Like we say, like high-low approach. Do it like higher volume and intensity Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever. And Tuesday, Thursday, put it in a little bit, but maybe just don't
and you gotta look at the term daily performance. So performing every day, so to speak. So in which case, if you're going to have a program like that, your workouts aren't going to be long in duration, but they're going to be pretty frequent.
Yep, definitely. So you're trying to change, especially if you're not genetically like bouncy. You're trying to change that, and it's good to have that all the time to switch it up. All right, next question. Any advice for upper body plyometrics without equipment? This is Rios PT2.
Yeah, well, I don't know what you mean without equipment. So without what equipment? I'm going to guess, and I'm going to go to the extreme and say you have absolutely zero. I mean, any type of...
You can answer in two, like 0, and then we could just say barbells and dumbbells, and that's it. Because a lot of people...
Okay, I mean, so plyometric, again, you're looking at any type of accentuated eccentric, right? So not necessarily impact as well. So you can broaden your horizon with that. So how do you have a non-impact plyometric? You can do a fast down, fast up push-up. You can do a quick style push-up. You can do good old-fashioned clap push-ups. Any type of pull, again, you're saying no equipment. It's kind of tough to pull if you have nothing but a floor. If you have bars hanging around on a rack, you can do, or let's say you have a barbell overhead. I guess you can try and do plyometric chin-ups, but you got to be strong enough to do that, like parkour type stuff. Say if you have a bar across a rack, couple things you can do. You can obviously elevate that clap push-up. You can do inverted rows, and you can also do, stick one end of the bar in a corner on the floor and do like a loaded landmine type throw. Yeah. You can also do a rebound type row with the barbell. If you have like lighter dumbbells, you can do rebound style work. I don't know if you have medicine balls. Obviously, you can do all types of so a plyometric throw then would need some sort of initial throw into you, and then you're going to rebound off of it because you got to accentuate the eccentric somehow. Without that, it's not really plyometric. So just keep that in mind. What people mean by plyometric, it's not just all. What is it all? all plyometrics aren't necessarily jumps, but all jumps can be plyometric. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of stuff like that.
Okay.
So not every jump too is plyometric. So if like it was like a seated box jump, people would put in like a plyo. It's not plyometric at all. It's just a concentric only jump.
Right.
In order for something to be truly plyometric, you have to have some sort. You're using the eccentric portion of it, or the lowering portion, to enhance the output of the concentric portion.
Yeah, I get
that. And trying to minimize the amortization phase, aka the isometric phase.
Right. Right. Yeah. Another thing I guess you can say is basically just moving. Like I think a lot of push-up variations could be helpful for plyometric for the upper body at the very least. For upper body, definitely. Have you ever done push-up line hops?
Push-up line.
So just kind of moving your upper body. If you're that more advanced, yeah.
I got an idea of what they are. Have I ever personally done them? No.
They're hard.
But yeah, again too, and on that point where we talked about, springs, the short coupling and long coupling. So you can do them both short and long. So where you just hit your hands and pop it.
Yeah.
Versus like load and go. So you're gonna build two different types of things.
Definitely.
But you got to look at that too in terms of like upper body preparation for upper body combat for like football linemen.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Anybody's got to take this, or like if you're a boxer, you're going to be on that quicker end. But yeah, that stuff is great for that for preparing especially the shoulder tissues to take that brunt of the load.
Yeah, and even if you have like, let's say a tennis ball or like a lacrosse ball, you could do kind of like drop catches, just trying to work like with the. So like everyone has that, or even like something that weighs 2 pounds.
Yeah,
drop catch.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah, and if anything, if you want it to be difficult, you can make yourself body into different positions. Like instead of just doing this right here, we can get into like a split squat lunge, get into different. Like I think you showed me this one, split squat lunge.
You can batch it in isometric with something.
Yeah, so like make it a little different, add a variation, but yeah, you can definitely do that as well. And anybody can find
standing on one leg. If you
want. Yeah. And doing that, just training the upper body to move fast in any way you can think of, really. So yeah, I'd be interested to do like a upper body plyometric like push-up stuff in the sand too.
Oh, in the sand, yeah.
I was just thinking about that. I don't know why, but
yeah, and that's good too. Everybody trashes like sand training or soft surfaces. Sometimes you need to minimize the impact.
No, yeah, switch it up with a trampoline.
With that, you increase the
volume.
The necessary force it takes to actually complete it.
Gotcha.
Because you got to push harder through it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a
softer
cat version of an explosive or a plyometric.
That's what we've been doing with the trampoline too. So
yeah. And trampoline stuff will help with that. Like you can do the runs or just even do push-ups off of that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Next question is: have you ever dealt with any hamstring injuries?
Oh, yeah.
If so, how do you heal it while also training, or like going around it? I guess. Landry Stamps asked this question.
All right, Landry, this is actually a good question. So I haven't had a lot of hamstring injuries happen in training. I can account for 2 that has happened to me or happened on my coaching watch, probably about 20 years. In either case, it was more of in both cases, it was a guy who just wanted to do one more sprint to prove how fast he was, and I was like, no, don't do it. Pow. All right, dummy. Now we lost 2 to 3 weeks of training, but we only lost 2 to 3 weeks of training. Where typically you go through the doctor route. Yeah, it might be a month, and one of them was getting close to camp, so we didn't have a month. So what I did was tourniquet tempering via Donnie Thompson. So what I did was I took the elephant compression strap, put it around from below the knee all the way up to the.
And we have a video on this as well. Like we did it because I did it like catcher's knee protocol.
Yeah, the catcher's knee protocol.
And then we did it rolled on.
Yeah. Yep, and then all I did was basically roll the tempering roller down the hamstrings, the typical Donnie Thompson body tempering protocol. And then that is just kind of a version of what Charlie Francis, the great sprint coach, would suggest when he had a hamstring injury is you immediately want to realign the tissues, because what happens when you have a muscle, the hamstring fibers go like this, up and down for the most part, right? So what happens is when they get a muscle pull, they become spaghetti. So what you got to do then is just try to he would use obviously a massage therapist. In this case, we're using the body tempering roller to effectively do the same thing. and realign them. And the quicker we can do that, the better. Now, what the tourniquet tempering does, or what the compression strap does, is effectively one, it kind of chokes off the blood flow a little bit, it restricts the blood flow a little bit. Two, it forms a little barrier between the skin and the roller, because if you were to just go straight up roller, being in that kind of a shock state with an injury, that athlete or that person is going to be, you know, there's going to be a pain response. So we can kind of nullify or dull that pain response with that, like you felt it, right? Like
even like, yeah, I had a lot of soreness in my hamstring, and when we did that, it helped a lot when we had that.
And you haven't had it since?
No, yeah, I've been good.
Partly is your sprint technique's better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that's a big part of it. Sometimes, you know, with these athletes, they're a lot of they're backside dominant. Well, their hamstrings are going to take a toll, man. Especially in this case, it was one of the cases, it was a bigger guy. It was like 255. In the other case, of a guy was like 190, but still same sort of deal. And I think he may even hurt his hamstring. I don't even think it was in training. He was just doing some extra running, and he just pulled it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
it happens. Injuries happen.
Yeah, he wanted to do his gastro drills that he needed to get ready for college.
So yeah,
so it happens.
You're saying dealing with them is the tourniquet tempering?
Tourniquet tempering, do that. And then what I did also was drill to align those
fibers, yeah.
Align those fibers. In the case of actually getting some exercise in, you can also use a compression strap. And I've done stuff trying to basically mimic the injury mechanism. So it was in sprinting, so we're going to do a slow sprinting type movement. So I've done stuff like band stomps are great, where you have a band on top of a rack, put your foot through it, and you stomp. I really like, though, and this is kind of, I believe this is kind of through the Gerard Mock philosophy. I think he was a sprint coach guy. And he, you know, the mock drills, the A skips, and all that stuff. I think he's popularized that or came up with it maybe. But anyways, I would do the marching type stuff, but with a sled. Okay, so we'll do like loaded marching with a sled. Eventually get to skipping with it, and then lighter load, but with the compression on, and they would just go back and forth to tolerance. And then eventually get into like doing almost like a stiff-legged run prime time with it.
Cool, yeah.
Again, with compression. And this is something where like we're going to get him back. And like I said, Dante, you know who you are. I always say, because I always remember how we did that. But it was like a lot of loaded sled stuff, and then eventually was able to get back into those faster drills. So slow to fast with that. And we were able to realign them, those fibers mechanically. I know it's kind of tempering is kind of an extreme way to do it, but again, he didn't have the luxury of, you know, going through the whole, you know, doctor, referral, insurance, do through the physical therapy circle. Nothing wrong with it, like if you have time, but he didn't have time. He had a couple of weeks. Yep, and then he was fine. He 2 weeks to go into camp. Or I think it was 3 weeks to camp. 2 weeks he was fine. He was back out, and he had actually a great senior season for the Dayton Flyers there. Actually got an interception and everything, being a fucking DN or nose tackle or something. But anyways, yeah, that's how I would deal with that hamstring. Pull, obviously that's on extreme end. If you have like a nagging hamstring injury, then what you got to look at is the actual technique and mechanics of what you're doing. And if you're sprinting, I would say what helped me a lot, learn more about that, actually in my own return to running. Yeah, Jeff Hauser, great stuff there. Squatty running and trying to hit the ground with a flat foot. I know that seems counterintuitive to how you're supposed to run, but for me, I have not felt my hamstring after running.
You're good. I was just looking.
I have not felt my I pulled my hamstring, like tweaked it a couple. I say pull it, but tweaked it a couple times just running back. I'm like, God damn. Now, I'm not, built like a sprinter or anything, and I'm not trying to sprint, but just doing some tempo sort of running. That shouldn't hurt me, and it did. But then I was like, all right, let me try this squatted running, flat foot stuff, foot on the line. Fine. I feel it actually a ton in my hip flexors and my VMO for some reason, which is weird. But
yeah, I've liked it
better than hamstring. Better than my hamstring pulling, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've had nagging hamstring. Not an injury, but like it just was nagging me.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, like, my form's so much better. I can even feel it, like my knee coming up through more, and I just feel using the front side more.
Yep, and it's showing in your fly sprints. Yeah. It's showing in your fly sprints.
So that technique again can help me with that. And I also saw my AT, and she said, let's work on some like hips and stuff, and that stuff also helped as well. So I was doing like loading the adductors, maybe they're like unaligned. Mm-hmm. And I did realize like when we were going through some like testing, she was kind of testing me through with like range of motion. I was like, to bring this hip up, I was kind of like shifting weird, and that's the hip that was bothering me. So that's what.
Yeah, well, the brain's always going to find a way to get the motion done. Yeah. But maybe the sequencing's off.
Bringing this up, I was like coming. I don't know. Well, and around or something.
Were your adductors weak? Is that
yes? Okay. So then I started.
Which makes complete sense because the adductors assist the hamstrings in extension. So if the adductors are weak, and I could kind of tell by Evie's walk because she's very wide gated. Yeah. Right. Usually, you're going to see the if you watch sprinters walk, they're usually going to be the feet are going to be right, almost like dead center under the body. Most of them aren't wide gated, meaning like they walk like a duck.
I was thinking of one of my friends that is she's so fast, like she's insanely fast. She's on a cross. She's like their best player, and she walks very like literally like perfect. I'm like,
yeah. So that gait is right feet under. So and that's going back actually to something Jay Schroeder told me Jay Schroeder said a long time ago. He talked about different foot stances for. I guess they might have done like the squat, but I think why he preferred the split squat is because that front foot is right under the hip. Most guys squatted like this, and Jay was a power lifter. He actually set records in the bench press, and he would talk about, and this was over my head at the time, but when he would say this stuff, he'd talk about, why a parallel squat? And then our only reason was, well, because that's what we learned in powerlifting. He goes, but powerlifting does not matter in sport. So he talked about the stance going. I think Cal Dietz has a series on strength, power, and speed stances, where it's like wide strength, power, speed.
And that's what we've been doing.
And you have different foot places. I think he did RDL and glute ham in his videos, but Jay did this with different type of squat. So I think that's why he preferred a split squat, because it was always going to.
Last question. Thoughts / possibilities of making DB hammer training easier to systemize. This is from GS Performance. Systemize in quotations.
Yeah, I don't quite know what you mean by systemize, because it is a system in itself.
Yeah.
But maybe you mean more applicable to athletes, right? So it to me, that it depends. I hate using that because it seems like cliche, but it truly does depend. And in this case, like Evie wanted to do this style of training, but I am training Evie in a one-on-one basis.
Right.
So it's really to keep it completely as if it were. And again, I've never trained with DB. I don't know him. I just read the book. Obviously, I've seen what others have done with it, namely Corfus and Fichter, and kind of put my own spins on it. But you got to think of it in terms of any type of others. It's like the West Side barbell system or someone's system. Really, the systems are built for those facilities there, right? But if you take the principles of the system, you can certainly apply it to whatever system you're running or doing. So I think we had this conversation either last week or the beginning of this week. A lot of this stuff would be very tough to apply in a large group setting. One, a lot of people aren't going to have the motivation. Yes. Who? Having the time. You may not have the time with your team or whatever.
Yeah, 45 to 60 minutes.
Right. Who knows? And then the other thing is you don't know where they're going to be at day to day. So, but what are some of the principles we can take? One, auto-regulation. Okay, basically, what DB says that auto-regulation is, it is basically how you manage every week, every month, and then every training cycle after that. It's very much like the Dr. B, how Derek Ely does the Dr. Bondarchuk stuff, is you'll see how things will progress and go, and then kind of determine what the next training block or cycle will become. So auto-regulation. Two, the time modalities, right? So there's going to be certain biomotor qualities that fit into these time durations. So you have the neural duration, mag is in between, rate is on the end. Most neural duration stuff, it can go depending on how much you want to go, think of duration. Okay, and again, he's got the N1, N2. Then what else is there? The aerobic.
Aerobic. I forgot.
Aerobic. Yeah. Aerobic reserve, or there's anaerobic.
There's 2 anaerobic and then there's 1 aerobic.
Right. So, and even with that, most of your strength and short power stuff is going to be 0 to 9 seconds. Your heavy stuff, and then your very short power stuff is going to be 0 to 9 seconds. Then you have essentially 9 to 25, which is your N1, and then that's N2, and then 25 to 40 is, I believe, the upper bound of N2. So N2 really has 2 parts to it. N2 is like lower bound, which is going to be more bridging the gap. N2 is going to be the upper bound, which is more your work capacity. So if you just think about that, right, I believe the rate methodics in terms of like turning on and off depends again on how what kind of exercise you're using. You're obviously going to, if you having a fast rate of turnover like a sprint, the sprint's only going to last, if you're doing a 100-meter sprint, it's only going to last like 10 to 12 seconds. So again, that's going to ratchet at that time. If it's going to be something like a lift where you're doing oscillatory isometric, it can go up to 40 seconds. Yeah. In terms of a duration type thing, which we did today, which was a 40-second isometric, that was just a straight long duration isometric. So is it that's a neuro duration. And then the magnitude stuff is always probably going to be from, probably 0 to 9, 0 to 15 seconds, if that. Just because that's kind of like what I would say. What a way I would term those things is max effort, dynamic effort, and then repetitive effort, right? So that's the language I understand, and most will understand. So if you just use the principles from those, you can kind of see where those similarities lie. It's just the modalities that DB uses are going to be, he's got, force drops and all this other stuff, pre-plyometric. Right, but they bleed into each other. So right. like your depth drop, boom, catch, drop, and then you catch, drop, bounce out, the catch, drop, jump out. Yeah, those are 3 different, and the actual names of them are escaping me at the moment. But if you read the book, those things will. If you watch this and then read the book, those things will kind of make sense. Right. The light bulb will go off. And that's the thing, can we strictly adhere to each and everything as it is in that book? Probably not. But what you can do, again, is just link the principles to what you're doing. Yep. Right? If you're trying to get strong and explosive, you're going to stay with shorter time intervals. You're gonna have those. Like for me, the most practical thing with the teams I have is putting shit on the clock, right? Putting stuff on timestamps. All right, so for me, the use of timestamps helps with everything. Helps expedite the session, and you can scale it from one-on-one person all the way to a group of 20 to 50 kids. I've done that. Anyways, you would look like doing something like a version of like EMOMs, but I'll use like E75 OSA every minute, 15 seconds on the 15, every 90 seconds, what have you, and then you would just plug and play what kind of time duration you're trying to affect for that biomotor quality. So if it's something like sets of 10 in something, that's going to be more of a neuro duration stuff. So if you get a hypertrophy stimulus, so a set of 10 normally, depending on the lift, would take between, if you're kind of quick with it, 10 seconds. If you take your time with it, maybe upwards of 15 to 20 seconds. So just do that math. 20 seconds on, 40 off. That would be a 1 to 2 work rest ratio. That's still pretty dense. If you went 75 to 90 seconds, you're getting about a minute 10 to or 25, 20. You get about 55 to a minute 10 rest in between. And again, depending on the modality you're using, is it something longer, or if it's something like a jump, like a loaded jump, that's going to take between 5 and 9 seconds, depending on how many reps, and that's right there in that and one sort of deal. And then you want to rest enough to preserve the quality of what you're doing. That's the key. Preserve the quality of what you're doing. You don't have to use auto regulation in that case. The only thing I would auto regulate then, if reps are too slow, one, obviously make sure your athletes are holding themselves accountable and doing stuff the right way instead of laughing, goofing around, which we've seen, or doing absolutely nothing, the equivalent of taking a nap on an actual bench press or